Hello, I'm Kristen Reeves here with 24 seconds of climate reality. Did you know remarkable progress is being made in the increasingly green field of storing energy? One analysis suggests that in the U.S. alone, commercial energy storage capacity will be 6 times greater by 2020 as compared to 2014. And that's 24 seconds that can change the world.
What can change in a day? A solar array can power a community. A business can embrace clean technology. A nation can vote to reduce carbon pollution. Around the world, every day, people are taking action to fight climate change, enacting real solutions, and already seeing the benefits. Join us as we travel on a journey of progress around the world, exploring the path toward a better, cleaner future for all of us, and how you can help create it. What can change in a day? Our future. This is 24 Hours of Reality. 24 Reasons for Hope.
They say the third time's the charm, so welcome to Hour 3 of 24 Hours of Reality. I am Ashlyn Gorse-Cousteau, and we are excited to be here taking one day out of 365 to put the spotlight on climate reality and the very real solutions that exist. During this next hour, we'll hear from Al Gore and learn more about the remarkable progress being made in energy storage. Vanessa Hawk will be leading a conversation with actress Maggie Grace and the director of the Yale Center for Environmental Law, Dan Esty. Solutions are already working right now. For instance, renewable energy is growing in use and getting cheaper all the time. It's a message of hope that we hope will resonate with every country in the United Nations that's about to meet in General Assembly right here in New York. And in this effort, we all need to make a world of difference. Coming up, we'll also be hearing from our green man on the street, Ian Somerhalder, and enjoy music from the likes of Jason Mraz, Kobe Calais, and Fitz and the Tantrums, among others. And through it all, during each of our 24 hours, we'll hear a new reason for hope brought to us by the founder of the Climate Reality Project. Ladies and gentlemen, Al Gore.
Well, thank you and welcome back to this third hour of our 24 Hours of Reality, and the third reason to be hopeful that we are solving the climate crisis and that we can seize the opportunities. So in this hour, we want to address a question that people have had on their minds for some time when it comes to renewable energy. I used to hear all the time when someone would say, "What about solar energy?" And the answer would often be, yeah, it's pretty good. The problem is, though, you need a lot better and more affordable batteries. Well, imagine this, a cheap source of nearly unlimited electricity on demand whenever you want it. That is the end result. And what you get when you combine unlimited amounts of solar and wind electricity with affordable and efficient energy storage technology. That question that I referred to, where people say, well, it would be good, but don't we need better and more affordable batteries? Well, fortunately, we are now seeing this happen, and it's happening very fast. The rapid advances in solar and wind energy are truly astonishing and do potentially give us the ability to produce unlimited amounts of clean electricity. But it is just as important, along with clean energy generation, to have an ability to store that electricity when the wind isn't blowing, when the sun isn't shining. And that's why the ongoing dramatic and rapid improvements in energy storage, including battery technology, are absolutely critical to our sustainable future. So let's take a look at some of the surprising facts that have become clear to us with new advances in technology just in the last few years. Again, remarkable progress is being made in energy storage. Look at the price of consumer lithium-ion batteries. They've become very common in recent years. In less than 20 years, the cost has fallen almost 100%, 90% in less than 20 years. And the kinds of batteries that are used in electric cars and hybrid cars, partly because the demand for these vehicles has been growing, and you get this virtuous cycle where the more units are produced, the more they learn how to reduce the cost and take advantage of the economies of scale. We have seen in just 14 years, the costs go from $1,600 to $200. And there are businesses now that are quoting prices even lower than the ones that are projected on this chart for 2020. So it's extremely encouraging. And talk about the economies of scale. You may have read in the news just last week that Elon Musk, the CEO of the electric car company Tesla, has announced a new gigafactory. It's going to be located in Nevada. The folks out there are really happy about that. That's going to produce a $100 per kilowatt hour battery pack within 6 years or less. And it will be powered by local renewables, solar and wind. Nevada is one of the great leaders in the United States on renewable technology. So again, if you read and listen to what the bankers and the financial institutions whose business it is to try to keep track of all these developments in the business world, here Citi says new technologies in energy storage are going to remove more of that cost barrier that has been an impediment to the more rapid adoption of solar electricity, and at the same time speed up the adoption of electric vehicles, and we'll talk about them a little bit more in an upcoming hour. But all over the world, we're now seeing these business announcements and industry announcements. In Germany, a boom in solar energy storage. SunPower to add storage to solar in new homes. In Finland, new storage systems. These headlines are popping out all over the world. The storage market has already risen to $50 billion. New initiatives for energy storage development. Storage shines in the solar sector. This is a business revolution and a technology revolution. Japan is using these solar batteries. In Germany, lithium-ion energy storage. This is another German storage facility. And some countries, like Japan, are now intelligently and actively helping homeowners and businesses to finance the battery storage systems along with the solar panels on their rooftops. It only makes good sense. We're also seeing this happen in Germany. So as the interest in solar electricity and wind power has increased, naturally there has been a huge amount of new attention being paid to energy storage. Now, when you combine the two, what you get is the ability for homeowners and businesses, not too long from now, some have already done it, to go off the grid so that they're independent of utilities, and so they don't have to pay that monthly bill every single month. And the business opportunities here are fantastic. Here is an analysis that projects that just in the residential sector alone, this is going to be more than a $70 billion market within less than 10 years. Very exciting. Barclays, another one of the leading banks in the world, has done a very thoughtful analysis and concluded that the combination, again, the combination of solar electricity generation and efficient, cost-effective energy storage, you put those two things together, it changes everything. In their analysis, they believe that it could completely change the electric power business over the coming decade. Now, it's an interesting thing that some of the electric power utilities are resisting this and are trying to slow down this revolution. But the people are having none of it. I don't want to put everybody in the electric utility business in that same category. The head of NRG, David Crane, is an example of a CEO who wants to get out in front and help lead this revolution, even though his business is in the old electricity generating business. That is an attitude that I really respect tremendously. On the other hand, there are electric utilities now who, along with coal producers and oil producers, are actually using lobbying and campaign finance contributions to try to persuade state legislators in the U.S. and policymakers in countries around the world to put up barriers to try to stop this revolution. For example, in quite a few states, their allies have introduced measures to put taxes on any homeowner who installs a solar panel on his or her roof. Well, that's not going down too well. Matter of fact, one example of the resistance that's rising up to this, in Atlanta, Georgia, the Georgia Tea Party didn't like that at all, understandably, and they ended up joining forces with the Sierra Club to form a new organization called the Green Tea Party, and they defeated that legislation in the Georgia State Legislature. And in fact, in states all over the United States, we have seen failure after failure when these carbon polluters and their ideological allies try to hold up this revolution that comes from the combination of solar electricity and cheap and affordable energy storage. Here's another one of the large financial giants analyzing this. Energy storage combined with solar power could disrupt utilities in the US and Europe to the extent that customers do what I was referring to earlier and move off-grid. Just like so many young people have stopped using the landline telephones, I mentioned this earlier, and gone solely to the mobile phones, we're now seeing the beginnings of this revolution in the electricity marketplace. Now, it matters a lot how the regulations are written and how this transition is managed. It's really important to do it smoothly and well, but we have to do it quickly. And now that the price of solar electricity plus energy storage is down at such a low level, we're seeing it happen very quickly. Now, here's another implication. Just as you will often hear people in the past say, you would hear them say, well, we just need affordable batteries. Well, now we're getting affordable batteries. Another thing that we've commonly heard is, well, what about natural gas? Because maybe that could be a kind of a bridge to the future. But the problem is, a lot of the methane, which is natural gas, that leaks during the fracking process and during the whole production and distribution process, when that methane leaks, it more than wipes out any advantage that gas has over coal, according to many of the best analyses that have been performed, not to mention some of the other environmental problems related to fracking. But the cost of gas, in the US at least, has come way down. But look at this implication. Again, this is not an environmental organization making this analysis. This is Citibank, Citigroup. And they're saying that the potential loser in this transition is gas, because as solar continues to come down in cost and battery storage comes down in cost, again, the combination of those two together can disrupt the gas market as well as the dirty coal and dirty oil industries. So again, the marketplace for the new technologies, these new technologies should not be seen simply in terms of the threat they pose to old, outdated business models from the past. We ought to be moving into the future with excitement and joy, with an eye to taking advantage of all the great jobs that are going to be created. Look at the size of this market. We have seen that it's going to grow in the U.S., according to the Department of Energy, 10 times over, from $5 billion a few years ago to $50 billion just a few years from now. That means more business opportunities, more jobs, more good paying jobs. So this is an opportunity. And over a 10-year period, we could see this enormous opportunity grow both in the United States and in each individual country, and on a global basis, it could be a $1 trillion global economic benefit. So that's why a lot of people are so excited about this reason for hope. And if you look at the business revenue projections for utility scale, affordable energy storage, look at how quickly it is already growing and how it is projected to grow. This is a reason for hope. This is a reason for excitement. This is a reason for feeling great about this transition, instead of saying, oh, do we have to do it? It's going to be so hard. Hey, this is very, very exciting stuff. And we need to seize these opportunities, because now is the time when we have to move more quickly. We're going to win this. No one listening and watching should have any doubt about the fact that we are going to solve the climate crisis. In the last hour, I talked about the two questions: do we have to do this, and can we do this? Really, at the end of the day, it comes down to one question. Whenever a choice about the future is resolved into a choice between what's right and what's wrong, the outcome is foreordained because of who we are as human beings. We have the potential to get off on the wrong track and get distracted and do all kinds of awful things. But we have the greater potential to rise above our limitations, and when we know what's right, to do the right thing. That's why we've been winning the civil rights revolution. That's why we have been winning equality and justice without regard to sexual preference or gender. That's why we've made every great movement in the right direction in the history of our civilization. And now is the time once again. And that is another reason for hope.
Thank you so much, Al. Please join me in trying to follow Al Gore's example. Let's start by taking the pledge here and now to dedicate a day to make a difference. For all the reasons to be hopeful, the fact is there's a lot of work to do. But when all of us act together, we can and must make real change. Tens of thousands of people have already taken the pledge to dedicate a day of action in the year to come. Right now, please join them. While you're watching, pledge a day of climate action, whether it's voting, marching, or speaking out in your community. Please do your part. Go to 24hoursofreality.org to dedicate a day to climate action. The impacts of climate change have quickly become visible and devastating. More drought, more flooding, and more severe storms are taking a toll on our communities and economies around the world. As they do, it is more important than ever to understand that this challenge is not too great to address. In fact, solutions exist today. Let's take a look at the good news as a reminder that we can solve the climate crisis when we all act together.
Dioxide has reached levels not seen in millions of years.
Climate change is here and getting worse.
Extreme weather has wrought havoc all over the world.
It's happening here and now.
We are running out of damage by the water.
So there's been a lot of news about climate change. A lot of bad news, that is. And for the good news?
Right.
Well, there hasn't really been any. Until recently. Today we're facing the hard truth of climate change with the stubborn relentlessness of human will. And good news is happening.
Right. And now for some good news.
Every day, new solutions are emerging. And not just wouldn't it be neat if solutions, real solutions. Our ability to convert sunshine into usable energy is rapidly becoming more advanced and accessible. Which is great because every hour the sun is sending enough raw energy to Earth to meet the entire world's energy demands for a full year. And the cost for clean energy technologies is dropping. Right now, the cost of solar energy is equal to or cheaper than fossil fuel energy in about 79 countries.
I didn't even know there were 79 countries.
And the electric car market is booming thanks to falling battery prices. And guess who likes that?
Who?
All types of people from around the world are starting to embrace renewable solutions. Schools are being powered by clean energy. Financial institutions are realizing dirty energy is a bad investment. And businesses are finding that going green is good for the bottom line. Which leads us to more good news. These solutions are actually working. It turns out that what is good for the environment is also good for the economy in many ways, like reducing poverty, spurring innovation and creating jobs. In 2013, nearly 6.5 million people were employed globally by the renewable energy industry.
Job creation. Brilliant.
Right. And while other industries are shrinking, renewables are growing as new technologies and capabilities are being rapidly discovered.
And here's some more great news!
This groundswell of support for renewable energy is forcing leaders and governments to take action. The two biggest carbon emitters, China and the US, have made moves to curb their carbon pollution and invest in cleaner energy technologies. And they're not alone. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is convening nations to forge a climate treaty that could unify the world to work together and lower our carbon emissions, transitioning us to a global clean energy society. We all know the bad news. Climate change is here. It's big, it's bad, and it's hurting us and our economies. But the important thing to know is that there is also good news. We have solutions here today, not dreams or wishes, real-world solutions that are ready to go and that are already saving money and improving lives.
Everyone's a winner.
If we rally around this good news and embrace solutions, we can forge the path to a clean energy future and make sure that progress is our new reality.
That's good news. Thank you for watching.
And now to lead our next conversation, I'm so happy to introduce one of our hosts from last year, a remarkable woman from Bogota, Colombia, who's become a respected journalist and citizen of the planet, correspondent for Noticia Telemundo, Vanessa Hook.
Thank you so much, Ashlyn. It is, I'm really honored to be back this year. Well, we all have a lot to learn about climate reality, and I'm very excited to be joined by someone who could teach us a lot about this issue. He is the director of the Yale Center for Environmental Law, Mr. Dan Esty. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm happy you're here. And also this beautiful actress for whom these issues are very important, Miss Maggie Grace. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, I would like to start with you, Dan. I want to ask you, how important do you think it is that we tell the people what is going on with our climate in the planet, but we also tell them that there is hope and that we can all do something?
I think we've learned over the last few years that if you don't provide the message of hope alongside the scientific reality, then people can sometimes throw up their hands and think it's all too difficult. So I think these stories that are being rolled out over these many hours about what's being done in the way of scientific breakthroughs, technology breakthroughs, and a whole series of connections that allow us to get down the track towards a clean energy future, but not just a clean energy future that's cheaper and more reliable at the same time.
Totally. Talking about this issue, how do you feel, Maggie? Do you feel hopeful that we're going to be able to drive through the situation that we're right now?
I do very much. I mean, I think anyone who witnessed the last couple of hours absolutely feels that way. And it's something my friends have been talking about for a long time. Like when we get to grid parity, then even more innovations will follow. And it's so exciting. And I'm so wildly impressed that we've completely exceeded the marks that, you know, we now have. Like solar's gone down like 70% in the last 5 years. It's truly, in most places, in a lot of places, cheaper to choose renewables than it is to choose fossil fuels. So that's an amazing place to be.
Can I just offer a further thought on that? So I think, Maggie, what you've said is the critical thing, because you can have all the treaties in the world, all the laws in the world, all the regulations, but the technology breakthroughs and the other innovations that are bringing down the cost of renewables, the moment it comes in under the fossil fuel baseline, you don't have to have that. Everyone will switch over, whether it's solar or wind, and we might not even be able to guess now what it would be, but we're getting close.
We were talking before we sat down about all the amazing options that are kind of on the horizon too, and wondering which is going to be the leading horse with batteries, you were saying.
Well, the truth is, and the good thing is, we don't even have to guess, because out in the marketplace there are dozens and even hundreds of companies trying out these different ideas, really beginning to think about what it's going to take to bring that cost curve down and to do things that help it, like allow us to store energy. And as the former vice president was saying, you need to have storage so that you can hold on to that solar power for the night or the wind power for the time when the wind's not blowing.
Yeah, but we can use energy during less peak times, and now there's all these new gadgets as an individual that you can get for your dishwasher or your home to manage like temperature digitally and kind of wash dishes when it's the best time.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And that's a key concept, Dan. I wanted for you to explain us a little bit more about that. Where are we right now in the energy storage? I know there has been great advances lately.
So energy storage has got lots of people working in the marketplace to try and bring new technologies to bear. So we've been looking at batteries for some time, and as you have seen, and as the vice president explained, Tesla is making a huge commitment on batteries for cars. And in fact, Tesla would often tell people that they're more a battery company than a car company, because the key to success for electric cars will be better batteries, lighter and more efficient batteries. So big breakthroughs are being brought to the marketplace in terms of car batteries. But there's also batteries for electricity storage, as Maggie was saying, from the grid. And that is really critical, because the future of renewables depends on success in storage technology. And it may be batteries, but it may be any number of other things, pump storage or some really interesting breakthroughs, molten salt and gravity technology. So it's kind of fun to see all of these efforts out there. And it's nice not to have to guess which one's going to be the winner, but to let them all run. And we'll see who wins the race over the next few years.
And it's not either or. Everyone used to argue about wind versus solar, and it's like, why not both? Yes, and. Like, we have so many options now, and we can use all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you, something from the economic point of view, do you think that when we reach that parity, because as you mentioned, Maggie, there are some countries like Spain and some countries in Europe that they already have that parity. So for the customers, it's easier to go with solar or with wind than with the regular contaminated energy. Do you think that this is what's going to happen here in the United States eventually?
I think eventually. I think it's a little longer, because we've got lower cost fossil fuels in the United States, because we have so much natural gas now that the baseline fossil fuel price is quite low. But we are seeing in some number of markets and some number of places efforts being made to bring down costs. And we're just a little bit above the fossil fuel grid parity, as Maggie was explaining.
What do you think we can do as citizens? Because, I mean, obviously, there is also the legislation part of this issue. Is there anything that you recommend that we can do at home to support these initiatives?
Well, I think there's three things you can do. You can first try to make sure your own life is managed in a way that doesn't become a drain on the society's environmental resources. So don't waste electricity. Make sure your cell phone charger's not plugged in when you're out of the home. Little things like that. Replace your light bulbs. I mean, everyone should have now put their lights to the compact fluorescent, or even now onto LED. But if you still have some of the old bulbs, replace them. Second, I think people have to be citizens for the environment. They have to get out and make the pledge to be part of the reality campaign. Make the pledge to vote for candidates who are going to hold these issues up and really take them seriously. And finally, I think every one of us needs to be an environmental consumer. We need to, when we spend our money, do so in a way that respects those who are respecting the earth.
I think that's a wonderful issue.
Yeah, and I think it's time where we're finally realizing that also too, it's not a downer to make these choices, that these choices are also good for us as a society, for our communities, and as individuals. Like, a lot of them are just healthy for us too.
What do you do, Maggie? What do you do at home?
Gosh, in my own life, I mean, I walk and bike a lot, and I'm really grateful that I'm in a town that I can do that, and it makes me a lot happier too. I prefer to take trains if I can. It's more romantic than playing. And a lot of these things are really easy to do, like air drying clothes, because I mean, I found out that dryers are a huge part of our individual, carbon footprint. So things like that. And I think, they seem like small choices, the water bottle, the, reusable bag, those things, but they do add up to, in aggregate, we're influencing and inspiring those around us, and it changes the kind of sustainable options that are available to us as consumers, as groups of consumers.
And you feel good, right?
And it feels great.
Well, and to prove Maggie's point, I drove my Volt to the train station and came here by train.
Nice. How do you like it?
So, well, I love the Volt. You know, it's a very impressive car. It's got great acceleration, and it's demonstrated, which now there's many products in the market that do, that being environmentally sound doesn't have to be boring. It actually's got great acceleration. It's a beautiful car.
I love the Volt.
And I haven't been to the gas station since July.
Oh my God, that's wonderful.
It doesn't have to be boring, but also doesn't have to be expensive. Like, I'm from Ohio, and a lot of people I grew up with were like, well, I just can't afford to think about it right now. But like, I got a 2008 Prius on Craigslist for not very much money, and I love it. I really enjoy my car.
And what you say is, it's wonderful to convey this message that it doesn't have to be expensive. And the wonderful thing is to see that basically all car manufacturers right now are getting out a green model, a green option for the people that want to be environmentally friendly, right?
Well, I think the other thing that we're seeing is that it's not just innovation in batteries and storage technology, but it's innovation across the board, including now innovation in finance. So more people can afford the car that is going to be more environmentally sound. Innovation in how we put money into clean energy. When I was the Commissioner of Energy and Environmental Protection in Connecticut, we set up a green bank. And again, the goal was to flow much more private capital into renewable energy, into energy efficiency, and to help people who didn't think they could afford it consider the option of putting a solar array on their roof or getting a wind turbine and doing any number of things that take some upfront money and might have once deterred people from taking on the opportunity.
What do you think, because I mean, obviously I know you're a fan of innovation and you believe this is the key in this issue, but do you think the law has to be hand in hand with innovation for it to grow?
So I think two things. First of all, we have to think of innovation more broadly. Everyone's focused on technology development, and that's critical, particularly in areas like storage and batteries. But I think we have to think of innovation more broadly, including in our policy frameworks, in our laws, in the regulations we write, more creative, more focused on economic incentives, engaging the private sector in solving problems. And I think that transformation, including innovation in how we engage the public, how we market these programs, is the key to long-term success.
Okay, talking about engaging the public, I wanted to ask you both. What do you think is the youth right now? Where are they standing? Do you think that is there anything else that we can do to engage them and to inform them more about this issue?
I mean, I think when you look at kind of millennials and even younger than that, it's just incredibly inspiring, because I feel like they feel a sense of empowerment and meaning in anything but apathy. Like, they feel like, you know, we'll grow up and we'll look back and we'll think, gosh, we were the turning point generation. You know, they're the ones that stood up to denial. You know, I think we're at a really critical point where people can look out their windows and see dirty weather happening and go, okay, even I can just observe in my own lifetime, this isn't okay. But even before that, I think a lot of kids were like, Mom, Dad, if 97% of scientists agree on something, you know, if 97% of mechanics said our brakes weren't safe, would we drive the family car? I think a lot of those kids are, you know, feeling pretty empowered and really want to be engaged and want a roadmap to the next step.
And I would say the biggest lesson I learned after 3 years in government was that change is very hard, even when the status quo plainly isn't working. And yet it's the young people who are ready to make change happen. So it is really the younger generation who don't feel like the status quo always has to be that way. Yes. They think of a future that is different and better. And I think we really have to energize them and free them up to charge out on this issue and so many others.
Totally, and I think also we have as parents the responsibility that this is the planet that we're going to inherit to our kids. So that's something that is always on my mind, at least.
Yeah. I don't have a kid yet, but when I do, I really don't want him or her to be spending, you know, their life, you know, running from storms, superstorms, and dealing with really severe climate change issues.
And I can tell you, as a guy who in Connecticut had to live with that issue, as several hurricanes hit us, after 25 years with no hurricanes, you do worry about the kids. You worry about the future that they're going to have. And I think we are really having to begin to face a reality that's going to require big change. And it's those kids who are going to lead us there.
wanted to ask you, Dan, you have been basically on both sides of the discussion, in the academia, obviously where the knowledge is, and you know that there is something that needs to be done, but also in the government. Do you think that we can find balance between those two?
Well, I think there is going to need to be a lot of people playing roles to get us to the future that we have to have. You know, I think the public needs to be engaged in the ways we talk about. I think we need to have the world of entertainment help to lift these issues up and make people pay attention to them. I think the academics have to think about what the right policy frameworks are. And frankly, we've been stuck with some very old ideas that haven't worked well. And I think we've got to change the role of government. That's what I tried to do in Connecticut, and really re-gear people around a recognition that the role of government can't be to solve all the problems, can't be to spend all the money. You have to use limited government money to leverage private sector action, to leverage private capital, to ramp up the flows of investment in all kinds of clean energy activities, renewable power projects, energy efficiency at every scale, in every home, in every business, in every church, synagogue, YMCA. All of this needs investment. And I think what we've got to do is really understand some new approaches to get that change process happening.
Great. If you have 1 minute to talk to the planet and tell them in 1 minute the one thing they need to know about the situation of climate change, what would it be?
1 minute. Well, I think all of us have some idea of what we need to do. But I think that, as I said before, these are things that are good for our societies and good for us individually. It's things like clean energy grids, clean, user-friendly, safe public transportation, sustainable food systems, buying cradle-to-cradle products. These are all things that, you know, it's not that they're a minus, they're a plus for us. They're all kind of like co-benefits of a low-carbon future.
What would you say, Dan?
I think it's a very similar story. I think what I would say is that the world needs to evolve, and we should not be afraid of it. This is a country that has benefited by vigor and change and ferment. And I think people in this country have long been successful because we haven't been stuck in the old ways of doing business. And I think that tradition, which goes back to our founding fathers, you know, Thomas Jefferson wanted us to remake government every generation. I think we need to have everyone step up and play their part. And I think all of us have a role to play. And I think we need to ask in our own homes, in our own families, in our own communities, what can I do to help this process of change happen?
And I think that's the wonderful thing about this issue, that each one of us can do something. We have the power to do something. From the government point of view, I wanted to ask you, Dan, do you think if the United States takes the lead in the international conversations, other countries would follow?
Well, I go back on this issue to 1992 when I helped negotiate the first climate change treaty, and the U.S. leadership was critical at that time. And frankly, we haven't signed on to a treaty since then. We've gone now 25 years, almost 25 years, with no new treaties that the United States put itself behind. Yes. We got the Kyoto Protocol negotiated, but never ratified by the U.S. Senate. So I think it is almost impossible to imagine global progress without the United States in the front seat, in the driver's seat. So I think there's a moment of opportunity coming. As everyone knows, there's a UN summit next week. There's a commitment following from that out over the next 14 months to negotiate a new international agreement to be signed in Paris in December of 2015. And I think it's up to the United States to help put momentum behind that effort.
President Obama is going to be in that summit, so we're hopeful. Very, very hopeful.
Absolutely.
Maggie, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel when you see, I know that you really care about the environment, and this is something that comes from you always, but how do you feel to see everything that is going on? We seem to be in a key moment of history.
Yeah, I mean, I feel honored and humbled to be a part of this generation that, you know, hopefully we're really going to band together and address this. I think it's not just one issue, it's kind of the sum of all issues. Because anything that you care about, whether it's art or your kids or really anything, it all hinges on how we answer this question, on how we all band together to really directly address the crisis of climate change.
And I love the
Can I just jump in on that? So I think, you know, to your earlier point, the federal government has an important role to play. They're the ones that have to do the lead of the negotiations. But I think it would be a mistake to leave this to the federal government. Yeah. State governments have a role, cities and mayors have a role, communities across this country. Everyone has a role in their own families, in their schools.
Responsibility would be nice.
Companies have big roles to play. So I would like to see a treaty or an agreement in December 2015 that goes beyond the nation state, that invites mayors and governors and corporate leaders to sign on and tell us what they will do to be part of the solution.
And we have seen actually, Dan, those types of agreement coming up, no? Like different cities or even different states, they come up and they sign an agreement saying that they are going to start changing, even if there is not federal legislation about it.
You can see what Mayor Bloomberg did in New York, a tremendous plan for sustainability for the city of New York. You see it all across this country. The mayor of Nashville has done extraordinary things to lift up his city, make sustainability part of life, make it easier to bike and walk and get around without having to have a car. Or
in California, we're trying to get up to 30% by 2020 with renewables, and I really hope we do it.
And I think you see governors who are making a push on this. You've got new policy frameworks in California. You have Governor Malloy in Connecticut, who set up this green bank to flow more money into the renewables, into energy efficiency. So I think there's a lot of good policy breakthroughs coming, and we need to take those examples out and show them off.
Maggie, what would you like to say to the people that are watching at home? What can they do today to make a difference?
I think one thing you can do every day is think about each meal in a way that, you know, we could cut our you know, food systems are a huge impact, like even more than transportation.
Yes.
And if you think about each meal as an opportunity to cut your food emissions in half just by eating mostly veggies.
Totally.
I'm not asking you to become a vegan overnight. I'm from Ohio. I was raised to like my meatloaf too, but I think about it differently now. I think of meat as more of a garnish and not the center of a plate. And it's better for me too. So I think that's something you can do every day. And then if you're feeling a little frustrated with maybe not feeling like things are moving fast enough globally, then I would really encourage you to get out there and really support and join in with these communities for change, because I feel like, you know, when we all start to feel that way, it's working together to improve and restore our planet that gives us all kind of renewable energy as activists. Sorry guys, sorry for the fun, I had to do it.
And you know what, I think what you just say is wonderful. That is the truth, actually. Every time that we buy something, every time that we buy a car, we're voting for that brand, for that technology. Every time that we buy something to eat, every choice that we make, we have the power to make a difference. We ran out of time, but I want to thank you so much for being with us and for bringing your expertise and your charm. It's been wonderful to talk to you.
Yeah. Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you very much. Now, Ashland, I go back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. The issue of climate reality impacts everyone, so we wanted to hit the streets of New York City and talk to the people. So let's go back to our green man on the street who's causing quite a commotion, Ian Somerhalder.
Hey everyone, it's Ian Somerhalder, your green man on the street. I am in New York City right now, where the United Nations is getting ready to go into General Assembly, where this year there will be a massive focus on the issue of climate change. So I'm here to take a bite out of the green apple, to generally assemble and talk to people about a subject that always renews me: hope. How important is this environmental effort to you?
Extremely important.
Why?
Because I don't want my children to grow up and have all these issues to worry about. I think it's like my generation's job to take control of the situation and do better.
Yeah.
And I don't want like my grandchildren to grow up and then be like, oh, like needing water and like looking for water. Like I don't want to be like it to be an issue to find resources that come so easily to us now.
So you're gonna do that now, right?
Of course.
Promise?
I think you swear.
Pinky swear? Yeah! Hey, question for you.
Yes.
Where do you work?
I'm a makeup artist. I work everywhere.
Do you?
I do.
What do you think, what can you do at your work to make the world cleaner and greener?
Well, for me, it's really about using less disposables. A lot of times, just for sanitation reasons, I use 1 million mascara wands a day, 1 million lip gloss wands a day. So really using my actual brushes, cleaning off my brushes instead of kind of going for the disposables could really help.
So it just takes a little more time, a little more preparation.
Absolutely.
By the way, we're talking about all this stuff for you, little lady.
Absolutely.
So we can leave this place better for you. Does that sound cool? Yep, she agrees. So you're from Kentucky, right?
Yes, yes. Louisville.
Louisville, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful country.
It's very nice.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Coal.
Right.
I'm sure you know a lot about it.
Yeah.
Anything specific?
Anything specific? Coal has been, it's been a moneymaker for the state of Kentucky, but it's not been very good for people's health, and it causes a lot of pollution. My stance on coal is that it could be a lot better. I think there are better ways to gather energy, yeah.
We've definitely been retiring some coal-fired power plants, and I think a big thing people are saying as well, what are all these people that they're going to do that work in the coal industry? There's 2 million people in the coal industry, right?
Okay.
Well, we know that alternative energy can create jobs.
Yeah.
We know that for a fact. And we can get the same amount of energy from renewables. We know that.
That's awesome. Yeah, because that's the big thing. That's why they hold, that's one reason why they keep holding on to it, because the job thing, right? So if you can do that, then that'll calm people down and make people happy. You'll have a lot of families in Kentucky that are great people that depend on it for their livelihood, but would love to have a better way.
Every movement has its moment. This is ours. So I'm dedicating a day to do my part. I'm dedicating a day to make a difference. It's time to stand up and stop climate change and turn the solutions that we have into the clean energy future that we want. So come join me. Go to 24hoursofreality.org and help me spread the word by hashtagging the word climate hope.
While we are seeing remarkable progress in energy storage thanks to the march of technology, there are others who would prefer to maintain the dirty status quo of fossil fuels. The Climate Reality Project has worked with millennial documentary filmmaker Vanessa Black to examine some of the top carbon polluters and key climate deniers in the United States, and to see how they are working to stall action on climate change. In this episode of the series Youth Fuel, she travels to Arlington, Virginia to peek behind the curtain of one organization that's on a mission to oppose any regulation that would work to put the brakes on carbon pollution. Americans for Prosperity might sound nice, but in fact, this organization has vowed to oppose climate legislation. As we know, that's clearly no ticket to prosperity, while we and other nations continue to pay the high price for carbon pollution today with extreme weather and its economic toll. Take a look as we investigate the real purpose of the group that calls itself Americans for Prosperity and the dark money that mysteriously fuels their mission, including their opposition to the EPA's regulation of greenhouse gas emissions and the pledge they asked congressional candidates to sign, vowing that if elected, they would refuse to support action to help solve climate change.
Conservative group Americans for Prosperity brought its regulation reality tour to Grand Junction. Organizers told the crowd that the EPA plan would hurt businesses and drive up costs for consumers.
Americans for Prosperity. Sounds good, right? Let's dig a little further. In 2008, Americans for Prosperity circulated a no-tax climate pledge that vowed to oppose any legislation relating to climate change that included a net increase in state or local government revenue. Why would they do this? What are their motives? And who's in charge of Americans for Prosperity? We went to their headquarters in Arlington, Virginia to find out. I'm Vanessa Black. I'm a filmmaker and an activist, and I'm traveling around America to find out more about our biggest polluters and climate change deniers. We're going into Americans for Prosperity. For Americans for Prosperity? It's not. It's not? Oh, why don't they list it? I'm not sure. That's interesting. We've heard a term thrown around called dark money, but what does that mean?
Dark money is money spent by corporations, other donors who remain anonymous.
We asked Kurt Davies from Climate Investigation Center about the purpose of Americans for Prosperity and who's behind the organization.
Americans for Prosperity is an organization founded by the Koch brothers.
According to an August 2010 article called Covert Operations by the New Yorker magazine, Americans for Prosperity was started in 2004 by David Koch. And according to a study released in 2010 by Amherst Political Economy Research Institute, Koch Industries ranks 13 on toxic 100 air polluters in the US index, and ExxonMobil comes in at number 4.
It is a political organization aimed at blocking federal regulation.
Americans for Prosperity are an organization that wants to have a public face, except the face that they want to show to the public is not their real face. The face that they want to show is that they are a grassroots, almost citizen-led organization that exists in order to try and help the ordinary frustrations of Americans become known. Now, that's not true. The reality is that they are an organization that are funded and very closely controlled by the Koch brothers that work to advance issues that actually benefit the Koch brothers financially.
It gives them a way to do grassroots, or we would call it AstroTurf campaigning. They go state to state. They can get out in public and be a public face on the campaign. The Supreme Court gave the EPA authority to regulate greenhouse gases under the Clean Air Act. Americans for Prosperity, they thought that was the end of the world.
I'm Tim Phillips, president of Americans for Prosperity. We're here in Billings, Montana, on leg 3 of our hot air tour. I hear you're a local agitator, Eric, on our free market issues. Is that right?
Absolutely.
They went around the country trying to scare people, frankly, into thinking that the EPA was this new draconian bureaucracy that was going to impact their lives. The ads are super emotional.
My husband has been a coal miner since 1994. In the past 6 years, my husband has been laid off 3 times. The war on coal is a war on working class families.
And many of their ads are about how your own life will be impacted. You will be forced to do something you don't want to do.
I'm trying to get in touch with Tim Phillips. Although I couldn't get them on the phone, they responded to my email by stating they're an organization focused on economic issues and they don't take a position on climate change. But how is that true with their marketing?
One of Americans for Prosperity's tactics was to go out into House of Representative elections, senatorial elections, and get candidates to pledge that when they got elected, they would do nothing on climate change. They would never touch the issue of climate change. It was kind of drawing a line in the sand for these people before they even got to Washington.
They would say that you want to get rid of coal, this is a war on coal, and that sort of becomes, well, this is just anti-business, this is anti-American. And that has been a talking point for a while, that basically the things we need to do to address climate change are un-American.
They continue to attack through working with allies like ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, and other local groups, and the State Policy Network, attack anything green that emerges at a state level, whether it's renewable energy policy or carbon counting, anything that is getting closer to sane climate policy, they will attack. This is the fundamental thing. Americans for Prosperity are hardcore climate deniers.
They're not using science. There's not a science-based argument to be made there. There is strong, compelling scientific evidence that this is happening, that it's human-caused, and that we need to do something about it to avoid dire consequences.
They are increasingly becoming more of an electoral organization, spending millions in our elections to defeat politicians who don't agree with the Koch agenda.
It's 75% of the American public believe that we're on the wrong track in terms of there being too much money in our elections. And what that means is that they don't have a voice.
Americans for Prosperity is a dark money group. It's a 501c4, and it has been running a lot of ads that it classifies as issue ads like climate change.
But a lot of it is spent on ads and to get candidates elected who essentially will vote against the climate change policies. Americans may see an ad on TV. They don't know where that money's coming from, who's sponsoring that ad. If they knew this was money coming from the energy industry in order to support policies that benefit the energy industry's bottom line as opposed to dealing with climate change, they might have a different view.
There are so many corporations who are in favor of a carbon tax and politicians on both sides. Everybody knows that it makes sense to tax carbon in some way. Not only the revenue generation, but just how you start to ratchet down something that's bad, that is carbon in the atmosphere. As you tax it, you put a price on it.
Americans for Prosperity are in fact backed by some corporations and individuals who have a very specific agenda. And ultimately, their intentions are politically and economically motivated with a goal to oppose regulations in favor of climate control and environmental responsibility. We all live in this world. Why would we want to oppose regulations to help keep it safe for future generations? Join the growing movement to solve the climate crisis and fuel a cleaner future.
There's so much more to come on 24 Hours of Reality, including an interactive town hall with Maggie Grace answering your questions, singer-songwriter Jace Mraz, the World Bank's Dr. Jim Kim, Bradley Whitford, Reed Hunt, Counselor to the President John Podesta, and Lieutenant General Russell Honore. We'll also have a town hall with former Vice President, Climate Reality Project founder Al Gore, more from our green man on the street, Ian Somerhalder, more field reports that you need to see, and music from Jack Johnson. You can also see all of the highlights of 24 Hours of Reality starting later tonight at 24hoursofreality.org. As we spend the day looking at the solutions that exist to reduce carbon pollution and how they can benefit us all, some simple questions might come to mind. Like, why haven't we acted yet to solve climate change? Why not embrace clean, renewable energy? We think those are pretty great questions. And as the United Nations prepares to convene a special meeting of the world's leaders to collaborate on negotiating a new agreement that can ensure a clean energy future, it's a perfect time to pose some questions. And who is better to ask those simple but tough questions than children? The Climate Reality Project launched a campaign to hear from the world's young people in their own words. After all, they are the ones with the most to lose and the most to gain. So it's only natural that they would have a few pointed questions for their leaders. And after this inspiring compilation of young folks from around the world, we'll see a single submission from a future climate leader from India.
My name's Amy Farrett and I live in England.
Hi, I'm Aiden and I'm from Hong Kong.
Hi, my name's Molly and I live in Malaysia.
Hi, I am Mika from South Africa.
I live in Croatia.
I live in Auckland, New Zealand. And I'm from Brazil.
Brazil.
From South Africa.
From France.
From the United States.
United States.
From Mongolia.
From Malaysia.
From Dubai.
From Romania.
From Mexico City.
From the Philippines. From India.
From India.
Western Australia.
So my question for all world leaders is this.
And my question to the government bodies is?
My question to the UN is...
And I guess the first thing I want to say... The first question I want to ask...
My question is...
My question...
My question...
My question...
My question...
I'd like to question...
I would like to ask...
I'm asking members of the UN...
Why do you sit here and pretend?
Why are we letting companies freely pollute the atmosphere?
Why are you allowing the palm oil industry to destroy Malaysian rainforests?
Why do global economic policies consistently stimulate and encourage reliance on burning fossil fuels?
Why is there no more emphasis on developing a generation who can take responsibility for the causes of climate change?
Why, in South Africa, a country overflowing with sunlight, don't we use solar panels?
Why not countries with similar consumption formulate region-specific laws and targets for the next decade?
Why not to put pressure on these companies to change their methods?
Why don't governments start creating sustainable modes of transport?
Para preservar o bem mais precioso que existe no planeta.
Why not change our focus, leave animosity and hatred and competition behind?
Why not incentivize people to use energy more efficiently?
Why not invest more resources in communities?
Why not strive to reduce carbon emissions?
Everyone has a stake in what happens to our planet.
The global problem requires a global solution.
It's time to act. So what are you waiting for?
Namaste, I am Rajashri from India. Increased economic growth manifests itself as climate change. Sure, we all want growth, and the way forward is to establish renewable energy resources and dispose of non-renewable energy resources like coal and petrol. Why are we allowing mining explorations to the Arctic where we could find non-renewable energy? We should be saving the Arctic, not exploiting it. By limiting our future supply of these resources, we will be compelled to invest in renewable energy, which is good for all of us. I'm from a developing country and have a certain perspective on the climate change issue. To effectively address the energy resource problem, why not countries with similar consumption formulate region-specific laws and targets for the next decade, instead of writing large, generic, and ineffective laws that have no applicability and no time frame? In the spirit of saving ourselves, thanks for listening.
We're just about to end the hour 3 of 24 Hours of Reality, and it's been great learning why the big breakthroughs in energy storage are big news when it comes to solving climate change. Hour 4 begins in a matter of moments. Please take a second during this event to pledge to be a part of our climate reality solution. Coming up, Al Gore gives us a new reason to be hopeful, and we'll hear some of your questions with a town hall with Maggie Grace. And later in Hour 5, look forward to a conversation with musician and environmentalist Jason Mraz. Please keep sending in your questions and thoughts at Climate Reality using the hashtag #ClimateQuestion. Please don't forget to do your part. You can make a world of difference. See you in a few minutes.